Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and really the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to have Catherine Knabb, the founder of Knabb Consulting and a certified franchise consultant and franchisee of Network in Action, Memphis and Virtual, joining us today. She brings over 30 years of experience in corporate landscapes and cost accounting and IT, leading global projects that have saved thousands of man hours to now empowering aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners through franchise consulting and premium networking groups. We'll explore her founding story, how Knabb Consulting is transforming franchise ownership and really business networking, along with her vision for scaling this dynamic firm. So let's dive in. Catherine, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast with you.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to kick things off. Take us back to the beginning. What specific problem within the franchise or networking landscape inspired you to actually found Knabb Consulting?
I've always been a connector of people, even from back when I first started my career. I would just gather people together for learning, education. I was always part of the user groups for different systems and things like that. So that was always part of it. When I was working in my last job, which was in the hospital industry, I saw choices being taken away from everybody. And in my heart, I felt like all of that was wrong. And I don't necessarily expect everybody to agree with me, but I wanted to use the skills that I had to make it possible for people to have more choice. And right about then was when the phone rang, and it was somebody who was a franchise consultant with another firm, actually a franchise brand. And they were trying to walk me through franchise research for myself. And they weren't asking for my social security number. So I thought, I can learn. And so I started learning about the franchise industry. And because prior to then, franchise was restaurants, McDonald's and things like that, but there's so much more. Yeah. And so I looked at his brand and decided to look also at competitors, and I landed with a competitor that's got 500 or so brands in the portfolio. And one of those brands was Network in Action. That's how I came across Network in Action. So that between the two, helping people get into business, and the mastermind groups, helping people who actually already own business, was a way that I could help people create and grow business. The strategy mind that I have, where I'm always looking at the flow of things and how well business is working, that kind of led to more things on the strategy side. So as I talk to franchise brands and I see that they aren't offering this service that maybe they could, or that they don't provide this as a system or service to their franchisees, then I start introducing them to people that are in my networking groups who do provide that service, and they can scale to do a franchise. So the strategy does not turn off. That was only the beginning of it.
Love that. So, from what it sounds like, you've done a lot of impactful work with really empowering a lot of aspiring franchisees and local businesses essentially to really get into the business side, figure out operationally, I'm going to assume, on how you can start to create like the streamlined processes. I want to get into the nuts and bolts for the listeners tuning in, even potential clients of yours that maybe once this episode airs, they might want to work with you. Would love for you to walk us through how Knabb Consulting generates revenue today. What is your core offer? I know you do franchise consulting primarily. You're also running the NIA networking groups. How do you structure what you do for some of the clients that you work with?
Perfect. On the franchise side, if it's the basic franchise research, helping somebody navigate the research process to find the best fit franchise for them, chances are my services are going to be free because that franchise brand will pay a commission to me at the end. I don't match based on commission. That would be extremely unethical. I'm always looking to try to find the red flags about any brand. I'm looking to find the best fit for that particular client. I go above and beyond to try to educate that client about all the different kind of variations that can happen in a franchise, so that they can tell me, oh, I like this, I don't like that. And as I learn their preferences and I understand their vision, their goals for their life, how they want their work day to look, I'm weeding things out that aren't going to be a good fit. And so those fees should be free
Mm.
if they go all the way to placement. If they decide, no, not right now, then I've just given them that time. They might cycle back and I get that commission later. I've got a client who is going to be standing up a business on an acreage. It
Mm.
may be a franchise, it might not be. If
Mm.
it's not, then we'll just arrive at a billable amount for the
Mm.
types of services I'll provide, but I'll scope through what he wants to accomplish in
Mm.
all the different pieces, like the services, the equipment, things like that, that are present in some of the franchise formulas for that kind of business. Then I'll make sure I know where to get those things. He's probably identified a lot because it's an area industry that he's expert in. But some of the services like systems, CRM systems, payroll and things like that, I'll help him with those things and also help him with the funding experts to help him get to where he can get that business off the ground. I'll
Mm.
also introduce him to people who help him with the documentation of the training materials and stuff. So he's got a fully fledged business as fast as possible. And it'll be foundation in place so that if he chooses to, he can replicate it more
Mm.
quickly than not because all the foundational pieces will be there. And
Mm.
all those services that I match them with will have the most transparent pricing and things like that. They'll have the full end-to-end mix, but yeah, I'll charge them hourly rates or like a lump sum amount for
Yeah.
pulling all that together for him, essentially doing project management for him for pulling all that together. When I come across people who are already franchisees and they want to add something, sometimes they've got X number of units in a particular brand, but they want to branch off into something different or maybe something that's complementary. So
Mm.
then I help them analyze what do they like best about the brands that they have? What revenue streams are they doing? Who's their clientele? Who's
Mm.
their best referral partners? And I just start thinking about the different kind of businesses that are going to be most complementary to that. And in a lot of cases, if it's businesses in my portfolio, then
Mm.
again, they don't have to pay me for those services.
Mm.
I'm just helping them find something where 1 + 1 = 5, as opposed to just stacking on another brand. I want it to be such a good fit that it offsets costs, or if it expands even their client base for their first business because it's such a complementary, it's going to expand what their existing clients want. So
Mm.
there's each of the situations have a particular strategy on the
Mm.
franchise side. On the
Mm.
networking side, members of my networking groups, my mastermind groups, they pay a member fee and they get a lot of benefits from the NIA brand for that.
Mm.
But again, because I know all these franchise brands, and if I understand that there's a service that they provide and that they can scale to the point of servicing an entire franchise brand, then I try to get them connected. The funny thing is, franchise brands do not expect franchise consultants to be solving problems for them. They just expect them to bring qualified candidates. So when I bring an idea that can help at the brand level, it's surprising to them.
Yeah.
And it sometimes it's like it takes them a, aback a little bit because they just don't know what to do with that. But
Mm.
when my background is in solving problems for business,
Mm.
so I just can't turn that off by being a franchise consultant.
Yeah, I love that. So you're essentially a problem solver from what it sounds like, really enabling a lot of systemization and operationalization within like the franchising landscape when clients come to you. Now, would love for you to help us better understand in terms of the backbone of the business as you are involved with like network groups and then also there's the retainer project-based consulting and then really the matchmaking, right, which is more of a commission-based once the franchise pays you. What's driving really most of the revenue right now within your business in terms of really the backbone and what that core offering is? So where are you seeing more clients come to you with that traction?
The franchise stuff is certainly a little bit more sporadic in terms that you'll a single client might take 2 to 3 months, maybe even longer, depending on their particular timeline. If they're in transition, going from one career to the next, they might have a more immediate need to get it settled as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But if they're still making that paycheck and they're not ready to fully jump away from that business yet, that company,
Mm,
then they might put it off and it draws a little longer. So
mm,
the regular cash flow is more on the business networking side. The franchise, there's cash flow there. It's
mm.
just not as routine as say like a paycheck would be.
Yeah.
But when it happens, it's nice. But it's not going to happen on the fourth week of every month or on the third week. It's not as methodical as that.
Yeah, 100%. Like with that being said, oftentimes we've had guests on here within a one-on-one offer fulfillment model, right? Franchise consulting, you're the one involved, you're customizing a lot of that systemization with your clients. How are you thinking
Right.
a lot about the scalability and offer productization of things, especially as you're looking to grow and really scale? What does that look like? Would love to hear your thoughts on how you're approaching that.
Sure. Now, for me, part of it is backfilling some of the things that I do personally for people. On the system side, I'm getting a system built on demand that's going to do some things for me in an automated way that I've been doing in a manual way.
Yeah.
So that will save some things and it'll make the performance of some of my both the networking stuff and the franchise stuff a little
Mm,
bit more automated. I won't say all the information about it because it's a little bit proprietary, but once it's there, that's going to save me quite a bit of time. I'm also developing leaders for my groups so that I can have some backup for each individual group.
mm.
And that way I don't have to be at absolutely every meeting. I still will be at most of the meetings,
Yeah.
but I'll have a backup for the odd meeting when I won't be there. But it'll
Mm,
also take some lift off me in terms of some of the recruiting aspect.
mm,
And so that will be very helpful in terms of having somebody doing some of the preliminary stuff. And then
mm.
I will be the one doing, yep, this one's a good one. Let's go ahead and get this person signed on and onboarded. Developing the right people and
Mm.
developing the right systems are certainly key components.
Yeah, 100%. The way that you're thinking about it, essentially in a manner of systems at the end of the day, and really bringing on more team members from what it sounds like to help in the fulfillment aspect so that you
Mhm.
focus on the founder level work, which is like the high leverage activities, growing the company at the end of the day. Building on your growth, would love for you to share a little bit about your client acquisition, right? That's in place. Like, how are you generating some of the leads for franchise consulting as it stands? What's been working well in that case? Whether it is LinkedIn, are you doing anything on the paid advertising side, referrals? Walk us through what's been effective for landing some of the clients for services.
I have done some ads, and
Mm,
I would say that they weren't as effective as that I wanted them to be. And I see various ads going all the time right now, especially around the franchise business. I
yeah.
don't see quite so many ads around networking. And so the networking is the way to get clients. So you don't see a lot of ads in that space. What I think works best for me. When I started my business, I was very intentional that I wanted to be effective in the Memphis area. Memphis, Tennessee is where I live. I wanted to be effective in the Memphis area to grow my presence on both the franchise consulting and then later when I added the NIA for that as well. And I still want that very much. So I do a lot of networking here locally and
Mhm.
I do a lot of collaborating with people here locally. One of the things that's going to be cropping up soon,
Mm,
I've got a new connection who is from my former industry. I used to work in the payments industry. He also worked in the payments industry. So his service now gives me a means of offering to my candidates, my franchise candidates, a way to get the spending analytics. How much money has been spent in this area on this industry for the
mm,
last several years? Is it trending up? Is
yeah.
it trending sideways? Or is it trending down?
Mm,
And we have plenty of analytics about employment. We
mm,
have plenty of analytics about revenue
mm,
in an industry. And you'll see those kind of analytics being made available through chambers of commerce and things like that. I have
mm,
not seen analytics about spend
mm,
being made available. But now through this connection, I can offer a really, I think, a decent price service where
mm,
if somebody is torn between a couple of industries in a location, we can just have this analytics done, look at the data and say, yep, this one is outperforming the other one by far.
Yeah.
I would be smart to invest in this industry versus this industry.
Mm.
That's going to be a game changer. So that's a way that I've been able to find something that's going to provide value
Mm.
here in my local area because this area is growing like
Yeah.
crazy. And
Mm.
so we'll be able to target the areas that need the more growth. On the networking side, it's not add so much, it's the building the relationships and building the integrity. Because I had worked in the corporate life for so long, I
Mm.
actually had to build a presence here
Yeah.
with people in the B2B space.
Mhm.
That took some time and consistency,
Mm.
being who I say that I am and showing that. On the LinkedIn side, I use LinkedIn in a very methodical way to reach out to second degree connections
Mhm.
of particular backgrounds.
Mm.
And I am talking with them about where are they going next? What are they going to do? What
Yeah.
do they want to do? I want to know their story. And as they start opening up their story, if they become conversational with me and they open up their story, then
Mm.
sometimes they end up being a client. And then
Yeah.
sometimes they just learn about what I do. And maybe now they know about franchise consulting. They can
Mm.
help somebody keep from making an expensive mistake by buying into something that was a poor fit.
Yeah.
And that's a win for me to know that, for people to know that there's resources out there. So I
Yeah.
do a lot of methodical research, reaching out through LinkedIn, systems like Alignable, and there's other systems being built that I'm testing out too that are
Mm.
going to do something a little bit different, but it's
Mm.
worth trying out to see if it's going to be helpful. So I'm always looking at those technical solutions out there. LinkedIn is one of them.
Cool. Love that. So, from what it sounds like, you're looking at ways, and I was actually going to bring it up. We have seen a lot of times, it's like a recurring theme on the show where we talk about referrals and in-person networking, very powerful in terms of like really building those connections and really gathering leads. But sometimes it's not the most predictable or automated or consistent way to generate
Correct.
conversation each month. How are you like strategically exploring more scalability with your acquisition, maybe on the automation side with outreach on LinkedIn so that it is a little bit more consistent and reliable? Would love to hear your thoughts on that, and how are you exploring that now as you're looking to scale and grow your business?
Part of it, a lot of people don't know how to communicate their target customer very well.
Mm.
So they'll go a lot of ways to explain who their target customer is, but not really pinpoint it very well.
Mm.
So even in my networking groups, sometimes the discussions are about the target customer.
Mm.
How's the best way to describe them? What
Mm.
kind of events are going on in their lives that now they need your services?
Mm.
Because sometimes it's event based as opposed to just they do this job or they have this two children, so they need this. Sometimes an event has to happen to trigger the need
Mm.
for a service. I work with my networking members to identify those things and
Mm.
define who makes the most complementary referral partners and why. Is it
Mm.
because they have the same base or because something happens with this
Mm.
business? And when that happens, then it triggers that this kind of business is going to be needed.
Mm.
So we look at those kinds of things
Mm.
and draw that out. And then we can go and ask Chat GPT or some other AI product. Okay,
Mm.
this is what I understand about this particular industry.
Mm.
And these are the things I'm currently doing. What else can I? So
Mm.
in my networking circles with my mastermind groups, we
Mm.
explore a lot of these things so that they're opening themselves up to the possibilities to
Mm.
automate as much information as possible.
Mm.
Once we've identified the good information that can be automated, then it's
Mm.
a matter of what systems can be
Mm.
used for that. And there's some good systems out there, but
Mm.
it's finding the right people who can make
Mm.
those changes in the system so that the systems work for us in a strategic way. The
Mm.
same information about people out in the franchise world, certain
Mm.
scenarios are going to make somebody a much more likely candidate
Mm.
for being interested in franchise.
Mm.
Doesn't mean it's 100% foolproof, but it does mean that the percentages are higher. So then
Mm.
it's a matter of trying to get that data in
Mm.
such a way that it can be automated as well as possible. I
Mm.
don't ever want to take away the personal aspect of it because somebody's story, the reason why they're doing a thing, that's
Mm.
always important. So
Mm.
I'm not sure if the automation will ever take things completely away, but we are more moving more and more to an e-commerce kind of framework in a lot of areas of this world. So
Mm.
I can't ignore it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's like evolving with sort of the landscape we're in right now, which is with AI technology and bring in a way to where we can streamline those processes. Now, do you feel like as you're an entrepreneur yourself, are you actively in that process, exploring new ideas on, hey, what's going to be the best way to systematize my outreach? How do I automate things in a fashion to where I can even get my time back and focus more on some of the other aspects of the business? Is that
Mhm.
something you're looking at right now where you need a new perspective? You're looking at ideas and how to approach that. I would love to hear your thoughts on really how you're navigating that as like a founder.
Constantly. Now, I'm nerdy enough that I want to be in command of everything before I hand it off. So and that's a mindset thing too. I have to be willing to give over things faster, and I'm working on that.
Mm.
But other entrepreneurs sometimes struggle with the same thing, and some are just like, you can do it, fine, do it. I just need it to be done at this or to this degree, or they'll just give very loose
Yeah,
requirements as to what must be done.
yeah.
But for me, it's identifying the right people who can do specific things that I need to have done to take things off my plate
Mm.
and do them in the way that I want them done to take care of the people. People taking care of the people is the most important thing to me. The
Yeah.
data is next and all that. The money is important too, but taking
Mm.
care of the people is the most important thing. So I don't ever want things to be automated so much that people just feel like they're a cog in the wheel. No, I
Yeah.
want people to feel like they're being respected and honored.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Bringing it all back to the humanization aspect of
Mhm.
technology and ensuring that there is like a delicate balance as we strike to create different methods of really getting out to our audience and like creating a lot of that messaging to where it actually feels like it's not auto-generated per se. Back to that. Now, would love to learn a little bit about your approach to sales, like in terms of some of those strategies that have been effective in converting leads that do maybe come in through LinkedIn or referrals into long-term clients. Are you doing this right now as your own on your own right now, doing all the sales calls, or do you have a sales team in place, maybe helping with the outreach, some of those sales conversations? Would love for you to walk us through how all of that is structured on the sales side.
On the sales side or the lead side, I do have some help who are helping me scan through likely fit people for those second degree connections
Mm.
and getting them warmed up to have conversations.
Mm.
Once they're warmed up just a little bit, then I step in. And it's not always the people helping me. Sometimes I'm there on the front end, but helping me get those set up. Now, on the networking side, I have some of that in place, but not quite so much. So that is something that I'm working on. I've got one group on its way to
Mm.
where I've got the leader identified. And
Mm.
so getting my second and third one identified and prime. I want it to where the leader gets something out of it too. They'll essentially get a free membership, but I want them to, but they've got businesses that will benefit from being a key person in a networking group. So I
Mm.
want it to be in such a way that it's a really good benefit to them. But they will take some of the lift off in terms of pre-screening people to make sure they're the right kind of people for a networking action. There's a lot of people who want to be part of good networking groups,
Mm.
but not everybody wants to be thinking of other members of the group to give them active referrals and things on a regular basis. So I
Mm.
want people who are constantly thinking of their fellow members to give them fit, good fit referrals.
Yeah,
Not
for sure.
everyone is a good fit. It's nice to meet nice people, but they're not always good referrals.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the topics that always comes up within being a founder is like hiring, growing your team. It can be such a big constraint in terms of where you can like localize and find like the right fit to begin with. Walk us through how you're addressing that right now as you're looking at scaling and fulfillment and really on the sales side as well, like finding the help there. How are you ensuring that, the talent you're bringing in can align with both the quality and the speed that you're aiming for as you look to scale?
I'm taking my time. When I first started this business, I wasn't necessarily expecting to add as much as I did.
Mm.
And probably some people think I'm them a little bit nuts to have done everything that I've done, but I can't turn it off, meaning I can't turn off the strategy aspect of things or the solution building aspect of things.
Mm.
And because that kind of stuff is so fun, then
Mm.
that forces me to put some pieces in place to do some of the more fundamental pieces of outreach and follow up and things like that. So when I identify people for those roles, I want them to be the right fit people, and I want them to be happy to be a part of it. So I do take my time to identify people. On the networking side, when I've come across people who might be a good fit, it's just because they are constantly reaching out to lots and lots of people through their business already.
Yeah.
And so since they're going through such big numbers, then they start listening for the kinds of things that I've been listening to. And if they find somebody that they think is going to be a fit, then they just ask them additional questions and some additional questions. And pretty soon I get somebody who's going to be a more better fit for my groups than somebody that I might have gone through 10 people to find. So it just takes some of the time off. And on the franchise side, then certainly working with somebody to help me on the LinkedIn piece. It's methodically going through person by person. Not everybody's a fit. I don't expect everybody to be a fit. That doesn't mean that by fit, I simply mean having a potential interest in franchise.
Yeah.
Very few people are going to have that. But if somebody is open to knowing what franchise consulting is, then they could then become a funnel to bring somebody, because once that they're aware that it exists, then it's, oh, I was just talking about somebody, was a friend who's thinking about opening a business. If we hadn't had that warm up discussion, then that thought never would have taken place. No chance of a referral.
Yeah.
Getting people educated about what the profession does and the kind of pain that it can solve people. There's somebody here locally who bought into a business. A friend liked it. I experienced that brand while on vacation, and they talked about it. Facebook heard them. And then all of a sudden, this one person goes off directly to the brand, had an enjoyable process through the whole thing, but they didn't ask all the right questions. So as soon as she was getting ready to launch the business, she was already interested in selling it and is still actively trying to sell it. She doesn't have two full tax returns on it yet, so I'm not sure how well it will go, but or at least not for another year or two. So I'd rather prevent people from going through that kind of headache to getting into the best fit brand initially.
Yeah.
First time out.
Yeah, it really goes back to that education component of it, right?
Yeah.
Building a top of funnel awareness essentially with your audience. You want to make sure that you're educating them as well and ensuring that there is that alignment, that they're not making mistakes as they venture into maybe looking at other options.
Yep.
You're, especially with your vertical, there is a lot out there. Franchise consulting.
And most people think it's fast food.
Yeah.
When they hear the word franchise, they think fast food, and there's so much more.
Yeah.
And there's brands to stay away from.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to know there's resource to be had. Most people wouldn't go and search for a house without using a realtor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they go into a business without finding somebody who's got industry expertise. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100%. Now, building on your growth right now, I mean, you're wearing all the hats still, you're looking at scaling, fulfillment. If you could share with us like a bottleneck or challenge that stood out, what would it be? Is it like finding the right types of like clients to work with on the lead gen side, maybe increasing conversions as you have more conversations, anyone that does approach you? What are you most focused on solving to keep all of the momentum going into 2025?
I'm probably my biggest bottleneck, the perfection of data and things like that, or putting too much on my plate at once. But so there are certain days of the week where I've just got a lot going on, and it delays my ability to follow up in a timely manner on specific conversations and things like that. So then there's probably a price that I'm paying for that. So that's the biggest bottleneck. The second would be getting this conversion done that I'm wanting to complete on the automations that I'm having built. They're custom. They're not something that I think anybody else is doing, or at least not the way that I'm wanting to do it. So then once that's done, it's going to save a whole lot of time. And it'll be something that I'll be able to parse out and equip whoever it is that's helping me with different things to operate in a much more streamlined manner as well. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest thing right now.
Yeah, I know. It always comes up. It's always they say it's founder syndrome sometimes, where it's very hard to find the talent in place, someone who's like you to execute in the manner that you expect, right? And a
Mm.
standard essentially at the end of the day. Now, I know you mentioned you're looking at ways to maybe find someone in place to help with a lot of that outreach, to give you that time back. Is that something where you've already found those fits right now? Or are you still in the process of building out the team and figuring out, hey, who are going to be the right fits to help with that component of the business? What does that look like right now as you're actively looking at fulfillment, scaling, and all that?
On some of it, I think is I know what I'm looking for,
Mm,
but I want it to be the right kind of person where it's also the right thing for them.
mm,
I could hire just anybody, but I don't necessarily want it to be just an employee. I want it to be another business person who understands the value of it.
yeah.
Like I'm thinking on the networking side.
Mm,
On the franchise side, of course, having people who are doing the dialing and things like that's one thing. But
mm,
I've got people in mind for that too. And that's in conjunction with some work I'm doing with one of my members of one of my networking groups. It
mm,
could help a subset of people who need something positive to do. Then
mm,
if I can get those people trained
mm,
and equipped to do those things, then that's going to be beneficial to them while
mm,
also solving my problem. But if I
mm,
just hire somebody who needs a job, that's
mm,
not solving that particular problem.
yeah.
So it's a kind of a people thing
Mm,
where I want to provide value to as many of my group members as possible.
mm,
And in this particular case, it's a nonprofit
yeah.
where they've got some people that the nonprofit helps. I want to be able to provide something meaningful to that.
Mm,
If I can get them educated up into doing the things that I need done,
mm,
then that will help them out in a significant way while
yeah.
also helping me out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Focusing again on those higher level things as you look at
Mhm.
scaling. What are some of those? I would love for you to share with the listeners. What are some of those strategies more tactically that you're exploring to educate the team members in place? What do some of those frameworks look like? How are you evolving that? And if you are thinking about it, are you also exploring new ideas, new perspectives on like how you can start to create a system that allows you to train your other team members and have those frameworks in
Mhm.
place? What's your thoughts on that? Would love for you to walk us through that.
Yep. So as I decide the way I want things done in my business, I've tried a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly learning about different businesses because one of the franchise, but also the different industries that represented in my networking groups. And so as I learn a thing, then I'm documenting it and putting together the easy to dig into, easy to reference materials that an employee or a teammate would use, and
Mm,
then making that available. Some
mm,
of it will be very proprietary because the kind of information to do as much of this matching and stuff as possible. I don't know that there's a lot of it collected out there in quite that way. So I don't necessarily want to put it out there unless I've got it figured out the
mm,
best way to do it. On the franchise side, the data is constantly changing. The even in the business networking world, the
mm,
data is constantly changing.
mm,
Everybody's small businesses are fluctuating regularly.
mm,
So in my particular scenario, because I'm dealing with the franchise brands and I'm dealing with business
mm,
networkers, I'm dealing with data that's just constantly in flux. So my
mm,
systems have to be in such a place that it's
mm.
got as of dates, things like that. So that if it's been long enough, then it's a good time to ask a question or to validate that this is still true. And so that'll have to be part of my procedures as well. Just make sure that the data is still current.
Now, a couple more questions as we're in the lightning round right now. I want to get a bit hypothetical. I always ask every guest on the show, if we had a genie in the room and now you have all these unlimited resources after rubbing the lamp, what would you implement immediately to accelerate the growth of Knabb Consulting and really network in action if you had to?
Immediately, the most helpful thing would just be a lot more in the way of people caring about other people, learning their stories and somehow capturing the story and what that means in the way of impact to why they do what they do. That is the most elemental too. why people get into business. Why do they get the business that they already have? And why does it matter how they serve their
Mm,
clients and their business? If I can
mm,
understand those things about people, then doing a matching, doing a referral
mm,
becomes a lot more automated. So
mm.
getting to people's stories and getting to their why,
Yeah.
that's the most elemental thing, and that's just
Mm.
time and listening.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to really the awareness component, right? Which is there where sometimes with the audience that you're looking to go after, there's almost like that lack of education or like really problem awareness about, hey, the fact that
Mhm.
this is something that we can help with or solve, and
Yep.
understanding more clinically the why behind why they do this, right? So that you can attach a lot of that emotion almost to that outcome, right? And the desired outcome when you're having conversations.
But people don't necessarily publish. People will go on rants and they'll do
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. But sometimes people don't examine their why closely
Yeah.
until somebody hits them with a question.
Mm.
And so it's not that the data out there that you can just scrape. You can go and try to harvest data,
Yeah.
and it might be close, but it might not. The closest you can get with any kind of routine data scraping type thing is
Mm.
industry, company, and
Mm.
things like that. You can make some assumptions, but it
Mm.
won't be foolproof by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Now, would love to hear about your vision for growing Knabb Consulting and Network in Action over the next 6 to 12 months. Paint that picture for us. Do you have any specific revenue targets, any performance goals in play? What does
Mhm.
that runway look like for you as you're looking into scaling and really growing?
The revenue targets are a little bit more elastic because
Mm.
in franchise, I don't match based on commission. And so the commission for one brand can vary broadly from the next. But in terms of numbers, I would like to place 20 clients this year. I would like to have at least 25 people in my groups, each of my groups
Mm.
this year before end of year.
Mm.
And if both of those things are happening, that should result in a nice sum of money. It's all dependent on the people.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier is like the awareness component, right? Almost making it easy for people to understand why they need that step back into the way in which we approach our audience, warm our audience on the acquisition piece, right? Figuring out the system behind it, how we can make it essentially more streamlined. Now, I want to hear a little bit more on your perspective and thoughts on the future, right? Like, how do you see the franchise consulting industry evolving in the coming years? Your focus is on more ethical franchise matching and relationship driven networking.
Mhm.
Consulting positioning itself for that type of future.
I don't think we can discard technology, and technology is at work there. That lead gen type people are constantly trying to figure out a way to automate as much as possible in
Yeah.
terms of locking in.
Mm.
This person is 80% chance of being your customer if
Mm.
we can point them down this electronic path. And that if it ends up being a good fit, that's great. It's
Mm.
fast, it's efficient. If it's not, then boy, somebody just made an expensive mistake. What I'd like is to use technology to help people answer some of their first questions
Mm.
and give them a way to ask, okay, now I'm ready to talk to a human being.
Yeah.
But whatever bots and technology are built to ask those first questions,
Mm.
the formulation of it will have to be changing on a regular basis because franchise is changing
Mm.
constantly. Networking, the businesses, the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, they're
Mm.
changing constantly. So it'd have to be reviewed on a regular basis. But I
Mm.
think there's some things that can be done and are being done in various capacities to kind of automate the bot sort of technology where, hey,
Yeah.
did you like this? Check yes or no, or which do you like best?
Yeah.
And then it harvests the information. But it's a
Mm.
lot of cookies kind of stuff, a lot of bots, and then sending that information and hey, would you like to follow up? And just giving them chance after chance to say yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it goes back to really like the automation components of really like incorporating that in the consulting realm,
Mhm.
staying true to the humanization aspect, the personalization of
Yep.
building those connections and not really taking away from it. Last question as we wrap up. Any what advice would you give to founders that are just starting out, especially those that are transitioning from corporate roles into entrepreneurial ventures like franchise
Mhm.
consulting? What would you say to them on one parting note?
I would say I chose the hard path.
Yeah.
The idea of franchise, the
Mm,
idea of bringing a brand new networking brand into a town where plenty of other alternatives already existed. I
mm,
chose a tougher path. There are a lot more brands out there that
mm,
are easier to implement. Children's services, some kind of brands are just going out the roof in terms of lots of parents are wanting to increase their
mm,
children's education. So I chose something that's heavily person to person intensive, and that can take a little bit longer.
mm,
There are easier ways to go about it, but I
mm,
would say identify what you want to establish, identify whether you want to have a key person from the beginning, get them trained up with you. They
mm,
can lighten the load from the beginning. Then also make sure that it's got as many revenue streams as possible that make sense, and be ready to with a plan on how to handle onboarding those revenue streams in the most efficient way possible. So
yeah.
it's a lot of introspection, a lot of determining what your values are and purpose and your
Mm.
vision, and then making sure you find a match that fits that very well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I love that. Yeah, taking it slow one day at a time and really like thinking, like you said, Bess, introspectively about the way in which you're going to go about systemizing and operationalizing your business.
Mhm.
On that note, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Catherine, thank you so much once again for joining us and sharing your incredible journey and insights with us thus far, leading global IT projects to now founding Knabb Consulting, to how you're empowering aspiring entrepreneurs, business owners through the franchise consulting world, helping them navigate that landscape. We're excited to follow your journey along, and even with Network in Action, formulating community in that sense. To our
Yeah.
listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you would like to get in touch with Catherine and work with her, she does have her QR code up. I'm going to assume that you can go and scan that, or you can reach out to her on LinkedIn, and she's happy to have a chat. And if you are interested in more resources and insights at closers.io, we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, everyone, keep climbing, and we will see you all on the next one.